Hello everybody. So first, I'd like you to imagine me in my mid-20s, and I think I've got the best job in the world. But then I noticed that at dinner parties, when someone asks me what I do, and you see the mothballs rolling across the floor after I answer, people aren't that interested. So at the time, I was a data analyst for eBay. So the eBay bit seemed to interest people, but even I think fellow geeks on the call here today will probably recognize that the majority of people find the idea of data analytics really boring. And then on Christmas, skip forward a little bit, half of the buses in central London had my numbers on them, so my analysis. And eBay were running a huge ad campaign on the side of London buses saying things like 50 mobile phones are sold every second on eBay UK, or 37 toasty makers are sold on eBay UK every second, and the like. And you probably imagine that that's pretty easy to analyse actually, but behind the scenes it was a really different story. So eBay back then didn't have structured data, so we didn't know for sure what each listing actually was. So to identify all the sold items that were mobile phones, for example, it needed some quite complex data querying to scrape the keywords in the listing titles. We wrote a lot of code to take out the false positives. So an iPhone 4 phone cover, if that's your title, that's not actually an iPhone 4, but we pick it up with the keywords and we need to exclude it. And some really, what I thought was sexy image analysis as well. But whether it was simple to do it or complex to do it, it was definitely the work that got noticed. It was remembered. And that really irritated me because we were doing so much work at eBay. It's a very data-driven business, and my team had shaped changes to the platform that drove billions in incremental revenues across the European business. But then it was those little moments in the spotlight, so the London buses, that got remembered. But then I eventually realised that it's those moments in the spotlight that pave the way for a wider audience to really engage with what you do, right? It's the hook that brought people into the magic of data analytics. And I realise that now. So then shortly after the London buses, but when I was still at eBay, I turned to my next boring topic, where only an enlightened few realise that it's a really magical business lever, and that's pricing. So when I was first approached by the senior leader team at eBay to work on pricing, I wasn't very convinced. It looked really hard. I thought our customers hated it every time we changed prices, and other departments weren't particularly keen either. But I took the plunge anyway, and my goodness, it's a powerful lever. So you may think about pricing, so how you price your product or service. You may think that's all about driving profits, but it's also a really powerful sales tool and a way to engage with your customer and guide their buying decision. So it was then when it was time to leave eBay Towers and I immersed myself in the entrepreneurial world, that I discovered that founding teams really struggle with how to price what they do. And there's so many common challenges around how to price, right? How to set prices, how to display prices, communicate prices, talk about price. So that's when I founded UnTapped Pricing, and we bring colour and energy to the topic of pricing, and believe that pricing support should be really accessible and digestible and profitable for early stage ventures. And I've read all the pricing theory books, but must say that even though I'm convinced they're dry and they're heavy and they're daunting, and so I decided to go out and find those little moments in the spotlight for pricing. So what could be the London buses and what was going to get remembered, and pave that pave the way for that wider audience to embrace with pricing as a key lever in their business. So I recently did a little experiment and ran 2 concurrent marketing campaigns. You might have heard of value pricing, right? So it's a strategy where you align what you charge with what it means to your customer. And it can be quite hard to do, but very powerful. But businesses rarely know where to start. And I think there are a plethora of rather lofty books on the theory of how to value price. And business leaders tend to get the concept, but they can't really imagine how to do it. And so these 2 marketing campaigns that are running in parallel, one talks about the how of value-based pricing, and the other is the same, but just opens the reader's eyes to the fact that value pricing is all around us first. So it talks about the price of a can of Coke. So think about how much you're all willing to pay for a can of Coke on a really hot day. Maybe you're the only drink stand at a festival, and then think about how much you're willing to pay for that same can of Coke, right? Real commodity product here at a rundown grocery store. And so value pricing, that's value pricing. And the results so far have been really stark. So by humanizing that topic of value pricing, that second variant, so the can of Coke variant, we're getting 4 times as many click-throughs and 3 times as many as inquiries. And so there'll be marketeers amongst you who aren't going to be surprised by that at all. But my point here is that I found that your audience needs a London bus to identify with what you do. Right? So for all of you, what are the London buses or the cans of Coke for your business? And as a founder myself, I've certainly found it very hard to carve out those moments to come up for air, right? And you forget to come up for air and help others relate to what we do. But I've learned the hard way that it's that sparkle dust you need to draw an audience, particularly on topics perhaps like pricing, perhaps like data analytics, where the majority of people it's hard to reach or hard to get excited about. And so now UnTapped pricing really focuses on that scale-up audience, helping businesses to crack their pricing to drive growth. Yes, I have one first step to suggest that you do if this is sparks your thinking on pricing for your own business at all. So we have a pricing scorecard. So this is a free tool that gives you instant insight into the health of your approach to pricing now. It takes 4 or 5 minutes to complete a series of yes/no questions, and you'll receive a personalised report packed with kind of practical tips that you can use right away. So lots of myth busters for raising prices and steps to designing your pricing structure and boost your confidence with your pricing decisions. So if I have sparked your thinking on pricing at all today, then that's a really easy next step. Just go to thepricingscorecard.com, thepricingscorecard.com, or reach out to me because I always love to talk pricing.